train you efficiently. Okay, well, let's all welcome back Alan Kress.
All right, let me get this going, and then we'll get into. Lost a little bit of hair there. Usually at home, I just light up a piece of paper and throw it in there. Like I said, I have one of these. I've been using them forever, uh, from the early '90s. In fact, wore out the first one and bought another one. No, I ain't got anything in there. I don't want to burn up the hammer handle. Maybe some water or something in there. I got nothing in there unless there's a critter in there. Could be evaporating it out. Um, all right, we started the frog. We won't spend a whole lot of time on the frog. You know, basically this is, when I do tools or doing stuff like this, I kind of do tools and tricks that kind of work for me. But this was a job that I did, 15, 20 years ago. And the finished frog went off on the other project, but I made another one, and this was it right here. Never finished it, uh, but it's basically ready to go. So the other one I did put some warts, and I did rough up the skin a little bit, but the webbing of the feet needs to be filed a little bit. But we did start. Uh, we'll finish doing the body shape, and we'll forge out some legs. The whole, we'll kind of do a combo right here, working on the body and working on the legs. So this is what? What? Yeah, well, it's a it's a little bit. It's a we could be calling it a tadpole if you want tadpole. If you do want a tadpole, you just forge this as a longer taper. We're going to do a slight taper here, but on the butt end, it'll be quite flush right there. But if you missed it yesterday, this is just like a little starter one. I had to do one of these, make sure I could still do one because I hadn't did one in so long. Um, so that's kind of what one looks like. So this, let me get my tongs, throw this in the fire, get it hot. So we're going to do the body and do the frog legs all at the same time. So the front legs, this is 5/16 for the legs, 5 inches on front legs. Now this is the 5 inches will do both legs. So you do one, flip it around, do the other one, and 10 on the other one. So cut that number in half for each leg. But we'll just have to see how this works out since we do have our fullering tool here. But even on the frog right here, if you was to look at it, I never even finished welding up on the underside. This was just, I just kind of cleaned it up on the top side, bent the legs, put them on. So like if you do one, finish it all the way around. And then after this is done, I have some nice little kind of tools I'll show. Some of them will forge, some of them Um, One of the tools we're going to show is like a 3-layer tool. You can change it 3 times. Most tools, you make the impression you're done, but this one you can actually, we're going to shrink a tool. We make the impression, then we're going to go from a round rosette to a square rosette, and then we're going to sink in a ladybug in it. So you'll have a raised ladybug. I forgot that we already had gone that far, so let's jump this one in. All right, we're close. So that little tit sticking out there, you're just going to grind it off. So you're going to completely close it up, and pipe actually gets thicker as you forge it down. So now, since it's the front of the frog, um, we will come back and taper it just a little bit. I think it's 1 3/8. And remember this, you're doing both legs out of it. So this is not the the full length of the front leg. You're cutting it in half. So this is not Alabama hybrid frogged with. But the back legs are quite long. I don't know if y'all have pond frogs around here. I mean, do y'all? As a kid, we used to go frog gigging around ponds. It was always interesting there because if you ever been around, the best ponds are always the snakiest, and at nighttime the snakes would drop in on you. So you never went with somebody who panicked a lot. It would get kind of hairy. All right, I think my pipe is ready. So basically, since you're closed in right here, you got resistance when you pull her in. Pipe is tough to work with unless it has closed in. You'll do more with light blows than you will with heavy blows, because once you collapse it, it's very hard to get it open again, unless you're doing something like the mouse, the large mouse I got in there. To get the ears raised, I actually cut the pipe open, did a little slot cut, and opened it up and raised the ears. I mean, the ears are not sunk in or cut, they're punched from the inside. So I'm always experimenting with stuff. So this is the webbing of the feet. You don't go you want the toes kind of broad so you don't flatten it too much. You'll kind of cut the toes and then you'll kind of shape it a little bit. So we're going to forge these and then we'll come back and cut them. And you'll do, a fair amount of grinding to get everything the way you want it. And you can make short toes, long toes, just whatever you want to leave. So out of that, you're going to, at least my frog was 3 toes. I think that's kind of standard. I've kind of forgotten the anatomy on frogs. What? Oh, okay. Well, I'm kind of so used to having a TV. So basically I've tapered down, because this is, their muscular part is all back up in here. So it's like a regular, if you look at a person's foot, it, narrows down right at the ankle, then at the toes, it spreads out. So out of this little part right here is, I'm quite thick right here, at least, 3/16, and because I want my toes quite, kind of fat, but I'll do, like a V cut and a V cut, and then I'll kind of chisel, and I'll even, either file or run a little chisel in there to make a little webbing coming in there, because I'll get as close as I can to making it look like a real frog, and I'm constantly saving animal shapes. If I find kids' toys that looks really good, I have these drawers of nothing but animals and shapes, and sometime I'll get a good buy. I bought bags of lizards, plastic and rubber lizards or snakes, and so if you was to come to my shop, you'd see these drawers of all the impressions or something I want to make in the future. So I'm just kind of imagining a frog right here. I'm not, I'm kind of eyeballing this right here. So if you want a bigger frog, go with bigger pipe. If you want a smaller frog, go with something a little bit smaller in size. And on this one, I will pull into it a little bit. I'll try to go, instead of making the taper on the front, on this one, on the back end, I want like a straight cut. Where the front is tapered, the back would be, because if you was to look, the head is tapered, and the back end is kind of like a straight cut. So I'm going to pull into the tool a little bit so it stays to this side right there. Yeah, if you're gonna hold on to the pipe, you'll actually stuff paper into it, because that heat will travel. And I did forget to flip this around right here. So the heat will travel, but if you got a long piece of pipe, you can stuff that paper in there, and but it's like a little tunnel. That heat will travel right in there. But if you can plug the hole, you can actually hold on to it for quite some time. But if you ever do cool this off in water, you never look at the open end, or just like a little steam geyser coming right at you. You never, it's bad news. So try to avoid that. So this is the other half of the frog, front legs.
What length did you start out at?
I think this was 5 inches, but it creates 2 legs. And you know, you're growing in length as you forging it. So I don't know what the finished amount will be. We'll just have to measure it, and we'll just. Uh, what, 5 inches? The back legs are 10 inches, front legs are 5, and like I said, on both of these, you'll be, you know, you're creating 2 of them. And anytime you're starting off with pipe, you always kind of go slow, you know, power hammer, treadle hammer, or hand hammer. But then after you get the groove kind of going, you can actually increase your blows. Maybe, and like I was saying yesterday, hitting it with, like that's got a D cut, hit it in 4 places or 3 places is better than hitting it on top and bottom. That's the quickest way to kind of collapse it. But there's just only a slight little learning curve to pipe. There's not many rules that you gotta really watch yourself. And this where I would actually kind of stop, because what I like to do is when, you know, I'll kind of finish grinding a little dome. So you can see I'm kind of fairly straight. We got the taper going to the front, straight right there. So I'd grind that little tit off right there. By having the handle right here, now when I would go to the saw right there, I can really control my cut right there. So I would actually stop right there, cut out the mouth, but I will go ahead and finish, you know, before you cut it, you'd actually, you know, flatten it a little bit. Frogs are not round, they're more oval in shape. And you just making frog parts. You just got to think frog, and basically you're just making the essence of frog. And after this, I did shorten up whenever I wanted to do a frog, but this would be, you know, much more expensive job. Now I can do a frog in one heat because I went back and made a die. Let me knock some of this scale off right here. And the back feet, real similar to doing the front feet, just a lot longer. You're doing, it's the same 3 toes, the taper, except they're a lot longer. Because these, as my grandfather would say, they're the jumping frogs, not the hopping frogs. He always said, never eat a hopping frog. So all right, we're going to collapse it right here a little bit. And I'm collapsing it a little more on the front end. In the back end, you can definitely do this in a swedge if you wanted to. And here again, I'm just kind of thinking frog. Whatever a frog shape would be. And all this is, like I said, is in the rough. You do have like a little, kind of like a ridge line around on the backside that I would, where the fuller went in there, that I would kiss with a belt sander or a file. There's really no way to get in there with a hammer. So after I ground off the tip, got it the way I would like it, because you got a handle right here, you can go up on your saw over there and you can really cut a very clean cut right there. Now if you did get it off, you can go in there with like a zip cutter on a little side grinder, go in there and clean it up. But if you'll just kind of do like a little line, you can do a very nice cut if you just take your time. So that's, as far as I would, kind of go with this until it was cut. And then I would kind of finish pulling it in a little bit, or you could just finish cutting it, zap it with a MIG, finish, because you'll have a little hole right there, because you're almost completely collapsed, so there'll be just like a little tiny pinhole. So you could leave the little hole there for a bonus, or you can go ahead and close it off. It's kind of how far you want to go with it. So that is how far I'd kind of go with that until you got it cut. So let's do the back legs. But it's kind of rarely that I'll, normally I would actually know exactly I need to know about doing like a demo. Clay always warned me, never do a demo unless you know everything that you're doing about it. That way if you mess up, you mess up at home. Don't do it in front of a crowd. So if I mess up right here, it's going to be on the legs, not, because shaping the body, that's kind of standard right there. And the legs, basically you're kind of shaping the legs. You're putting just a slight bend um, I flatten just ever so slightly up around the shoulder where it kind of connects right there. But you're going to breeze in or mig in or tig in, all this, and you're going to kind of grind it back down. And the back legs are just, the only thing you can mess up there on is just trying to getting your bends right. If I would have had a little more time, I would have went ahead and knocked out some legs at home and had those where we could have at least, had for your auction there the body and the legs, and you would have where I had a finished frog for you, but I had getting everything ready for here and traveling here. All right, so that's any questions on the frog? It looks all fairly simple about it. I mean, it's like I said, the eyes themselves. If you look at this one, it actually has little indentions in there. Now, if you can come in there with a little drill bit, but sometimes when you MIG, you can get it just right there, and you can build up, and sometimes it'll leave these little pupil kind of looks right there, but you can always kiss it with a little drill bit if you want to. Because I really wanted the raised eyes on the frog. My grandfather just always said, never eat a hopping frog, or they just don't taste right. Well, like a toad, there was, I mean, he was just old country. Yeah, but the jumping frogs are your pond frogs. Yeah, basically that's what he's talking about. Never eat a toad. That's the hopping frog. They hop. Where bullfrogs jump. I mean, they can jump 6 feet out in the water. So that was always one of my grandfather's saying. He said, don't ever eat a hopping frog, because he always knew I was going out fishing and stuff like that. A what?
Frog race?
No, actually, I haven't.
Dad took me to a frog race when I was a kid, and everyone would get their frog and put it in a circle, and then you'd spray them with a squirt bottle.
To get them
They
going.
had to jump out of another circle that was like 5 feet bigger than that one. They like lifted up the thing, and without prompting, one kid's frog just went and ran out. It's really bizarre.
So it was. Would y'all have numbers on them to see who was the first one to jump out?
I don't remember. I was just a little kid. I think there was some losing track of frogs.
Well, I've seen where they'll do chickens that way. Whoever put chickens in a circle, and then sometime they'll take a cow. They'll go like on a ball field. They'll raise money for the local football team, and they'll make a big grid and square off, put numbers in it. So they'd put a cow in this big grid, and you'd put money on you pick a number, and first time the cow left his little mark, you won. So I was wondering if that contest. So I think we'll get back. I want to kind of cut out the toes, but I'm going to let all this cool off. We'll do them all at once. But the bending, I use, where's the pair of tongs? At home, I didn't bring them, but I have all kind of different sizes of bending forks. I mean, we're talking, I'll take coil spring and I'll bend little U's, when I'm doing little bitty bends. But since I forgot mine, I'm just going to use this here. And so basically, you'll kind of have a little mark set right here. You'll have some heat, bend, collapse it, and then you'll do the opposite way, bend, and then collapse it. And that's how I would do that. But I want to go ahead and we'll cut the toes, but that's how the other way is just to take a torch, get a very precise heat, and then still do the bend right there. But we're going to stop on that, let all this cool off. So that's all the components to making a frog right there. And this, doing that job, I was saying, well, I spent, at least 2-3 hours trying to make it out of solid, trying to get the mass right, forging it, getting the body. And it was just taking forever because I would slit the legs and just never could get it right. And so when I jumped the pipe, did it in the first time. So changing the steel, just like, using the angle iron and using channel iron, changing the steel, I mean, is such a bonus. Instead of, you're thinking, well, I'm just going to use solid, that's it. Well, you have to get this stuff out of your head because it's there, use it, and you can just knock it out. I mean, you can just make frog legs all day long and forge bodies all day long. And then the grasshopper, I just kind of forged what it looked like a grasshopper. Made little tiny legs, and then, this is the tongue, wrapped it around it. So we're going to let all this, cool off, and we're going to jump to some tool making right there.
Before you move on, can I ask a couple of quick questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
When you cut the mouth on the frog, do you cut it right down the center line, or do you go below the center line? Or?
This frog is kind of looking up. If you was to look at it, it's kind of dead in the center. Now, if you want him to have his mouth open, you could cut a bigger opening, but he's pretty much dead in the center. Now, I probably didn't have a frog that I was going by. Might have had a little something there, but it's just as easy to cut down the center, just a little bit of a slight, off center here and a little bit off center there. But if you really want it precise, I would say, look, here again, I'm making the essence of frog, so I just went just a little bit off of center right there.
You made the pair's front legs and the pair's back legs out of a single piece of large stone. Do you cut it in half then?
Yeah.
And then weld each leg on separately, or on the back legs, is it all one piece?
No, it's they're cut in half, and then like I said, I'll actually, as soon as I cut them in half, I'll actually flatten a little bit on the shoulder to make it look muscular, because this is 5/16 round. 3/8 is too big and bulky. You're just killing yourself. So just as soon as you cut them in half, I flatten it a little bit, and it kind of gives the impression that he's a very, like he's a workout frog,
You use a 10-inch stock for the back legs, a 5-inch stock for the front legs.
Yeah,
But in both cases, it's 5/16.
5/16.
You didn't use a larger stock for the back legs?
Nope, I kept them the same, and that 5 inches is like 2.5 for the one side, 2.5 for the other, and same thing. Yep, and it's just easier to do it that way instead of going ahead and pre-cutting it. You're working with something short, and it just, that's just the way I do a lot of things. I'd be actually doing the front and the back, have the two pieces in there, then flip them around. I always working, two things in a fire. One's heating, one's I'm hammering on. But just to show you, I'll need a striker, since we're on the frogs, we'll go ahead. Let's see right here. I'll need somebody to strike for me, and so this. Let me throw these in here. So this is one of the tools like I usually sell. I would usually have some of those up on the table. So this is, so I went back and made a frog out of solid. So the very first one I did, it actually had the webbing on the back feet, but it was too wide. So I went back and trimmed off the toes. So they're eliminated. The very first one, you know, I got maybe 4 or 5 versions of frogs in die shape. And this is just a lot of times I'll go and check, you know, if I make some frogs they don't quite look right, the dies, I'll go in there and just, you know, slam one out and to check it. So that's kind of what this is right here, is just to check myself, because this was actually just a round slug. But you can change the dimensions of your frog by changing the size of the stock. So we'll make one frog small, one frog, you know, large right here. If you're, what Allison was saying there, you know, how do you treat the dies? You know, the dies, you know, if you're first one in, I'll actually would, you know, like I said, I have a shelf right here. I'll preheat my die a little bit, because those things are just a huge heat sink right there. And especially in the wintertime when that thing's 30 degrees, you know, even if you got a big hammer, it'll still not quite, you know, get it finished all the way. Are you my striker? Did you eat good this morning? I hope so. And what? I always make a positive first, unless it's a tool that I have to, sometimes I have to make a tool to make a tool, and then make another tool. I've had to where I make 3 tools just to make one tool. Here again, I would have made this little kind of hump shape out of, you know, solid right there. You know, got it fairly right. I'd have made a leg, welded it on there, and I've been working on it. I'd be doing this on a disc. I'd take a round disc, because you got to have something to hold, and I'd, you know, do a plug weld right here, or a drill out a hole, and then I'd weld in the first body right there, and then weld on one leg, weld on another one, weld it on, because you got to have something to hold, and then make the impression, and then see how it looks. If I'm happy with it, and then I'll grab up some good, because the first one had been out of mild steel. Then I'll grab up some H13 or S7 or 4140, and then slam out the master positive. You know, this one you just throw away. And then that would be a keeper from then on. You know, all the masters are made out of something good, so I can just keep knocking them out. You know, this, you know, my master now has probably made 100 to 200 frogs. You know, because I'm selling them to other blacksmiths. But every once in a while you'll do a screw up. You know, but I hate wasting. You know, for whatever reason I didn't like it. So I'm hot. I'll flip it over and do that impression again on the opposite side. But what happened on that frog is it distorted the frog so much there. Now when you make I went back and made that frog impression out of that distorted side. It looks like a roadkill frog, like you've been run over, because you just, you know, you got I made the impression, it went screwy on me. So I went back and did it on that side. That was good, but I like the roadkill frog even better. So I keep it as my roadkill frog. So I never throw away a negative, you know, if a screw up, you know. But frogs are nice because you can actually, like, these have handles right here. Frogs, I can actually take this and you can take a bar on the frog, drive it in there. A lot of times I'll take the slug and I'll upset it right in there. So if I want to make him look like he's on a lily pad, I'll upset into him. I'll take a 1-inch round by like 1.25 inches and hold it right here, and I'll start, slamming it in there. I'll kind of set it, and a lot of times I'll hit it a few times because you'll come out always scaly, and I'll knock out that scale and then finish it. And at a certain point there, that frog will grab, and I'll pull out my tongs and finish it, and it'll make the frog look like he's sitting on a lily pad. I like to do it in one heat because your second one you'll get some scale. Now if it takes 2 heats, and then I'll just take my butcher block, brush it real good, or I'll come into my die, hit it once, and it'll pop that scale, go in and out, and go at it again. I'm just so quick at it, I'll just just shake out the scale and go at it again. I can do it on a 50 or a 70. I can also do it on a 25 little giant. And my little 25, my first hammer, you just up the throat a little bit. Little 25s are fast. They're great little drawing dies, but I put drawing dies in there and open the throat up a little bit, because you got, 1 inch here, and you're going in with a tall 1 1/4 inch slug into it, so I'll open up the throat. First thing we're going to do is we're going to come and we're going to flatten it a little bit because the frog is quite long, so we're going to go and elongate him a little bit. Let's see if I can. So I like doing dies in 1 heats, and I like doing my impression in 1 heats because they come out clean. So we'll do the little one first. So elongate him. So all the scales get knocked up, okay? All right, let's see what you got. All right, that'll be good, but don't run away. So by going with something a little bit smaller, and because I preheated this die, she could just keep on going because we already had some heat in there. So that's a pretty good impression right there. Had just a little bit of scale right there, but that could be knocked off easy. So under the power hammer, if I see that's going skewed a little bit, I'll actually move metal around under the dies. You're working flat dies, I'll actually walk it off. Did everybody see it over here on this side? I'll actually will take, yeah, there we go. When I'm hammering, I'll actually will turn it from side to side or walk it off. So I'll actually take my dies and start hammering, and I'll move it this way if I look like I don't have the feet going all the way, or I'll do it this way too. So I can move that metal around under the dies. Same. She was actually moving the metal. She was hitting here, hitting there, and pushing it around right there. So this time we're going to go a little bit bigger. So now if I need a frog, that I'll just go and use this instead of going to that right there. Flatten it a little bit. All right. If you notice that all that scale is coming off, and we'll have to go for a second heat. All right, let me get a second heat. So it was a little bit colder on this one, so we didn't quite go as deep right there, but you can kind of see that the body is coming into it. So you got more mass, so it's going to create a bigger frog. You'll get more, same dye, but you can change the whole appearance. It'll be a thicker frog, the feet will be filled.
Alan, can you speak to the alloy of steel for your die?
4140.
Treatment?
It's 4140, and they just have a light heat treating because I look at it because your dies are already, should be hard. If you make this as hard as your dies, and if you don't, if you hit this solid with the dies of the hammer, where you're either going to ding up your dies on your hammer, it's easier to have this a little bit softer, and 4140 is tough. I'm counting on the toughness and the mass of this die right here versus how hard it is. Because I can easily replace, you call me up and I say, well, my die's broke or something like that. I'd send you another one, or my die's a mushroom. I can easily do that versus, replace the die easier than having to go through a lawyer who says, well, my client got his eye put out because the die broke and chips, somebody got hit out there. So I'm looking, long term, 41, using a good steel. And if, you can't forge these cold, they're always meant to go hot right there. So, what? No, the dies, the power hammer dies are always, heat treated. When I do workshop or I sell one, they're always close to 50 Rockwell. I'll try to go for 55. But so far I've never had any dies to ever break except one guy who had a 100-pound little giant. He had a big sway where he always drew out bars, and he was always he'd break the dies, and I couldn't figure out why he was breaking them. But he had this, and he would forge his stuff. He'd get in there and get excited, and he would just keep forging and forging, and he would break the die. So I said, So I kept making the dies thicker and thicker for him, so I just made him monster dies. I said, you got to fix your die. So you either got to go in there and hit once or twice, knock that scale off, or you brush it before you go in there. Just a couple more blows towards me, and that will do it. All right, we're going to do one other. You're getting your workout. All right, one more hit right here. You're not quite done just yet. One more hit right here. Give me a good solid blow. Um, one more. That's it. So that's just my touch mark right there. I have I traded with a guy. He was an engraver, and put my AK. Um, the eyes didn't hardly fill out right here. So yeah, there we go. So I like to see bulging eyes on the frog. So we didn't quite get that filled. So that's kind of the minus to, more mass. It's a little bit harder to drive in there because you got more of a circumference right there. But under a power hammer, just add a little bit of scale right there. It don't, there's a certain amount that a power hammer you can exceed the limits of it. But when you come in there hot and you dice hot, you can really make some nice impressions. So that's kind of like the frog demo there. So you kind of see how I started with the frogs doing out of pipe, and then I do the dies right there. This will be hot. What time is it getting? What are we running on time? 10 o'clock? 3 minutes after. Okay. We may not do this right here because I'm gonna talk about it because it's a very old historical twist, and then we're gonna do some other, we're gonna do like what I call the shrinking of a die rather. But this I like to talk about it because, and usually if there's time, we may still do this if there's time. But this is actually called in Europe, it's called a barley twist. English would call it a sugar twist. And but basically, a lot of people have done this, but a lot of people didn't really know there's a name or the history of it right here. So this is what you'd actually get. Let me get this one right here. So this is the setup right here for it. Just 3/16 around a piece of 1/2 inch mild steel, and by changing what size you twist around it, like this is 3/16. This is a quarter right here. Playing all these years, actually I did some of these years ago because I was always trying to find a certain twist, trying to twist this. Everybody know about the Smith in Milwaukee, Cyril Connolly, in his masterpiece where he's got like a demon coming out. In there's a twist that it just kind of mystified me how he always did that. And so I was always kind of trying to figure that up, and it's the corkscrew that kind of got me going. So I was always twisting stuff, see if you could twist it, but when I saw that tool that you would forge a twist, not actually twist it. But the barley twist right here, what makes it so interesting is how old it is. If you go back, the oldest known name is what's called a Solomonic twist. And when the Jews came out of Egypt, the poles they used to carry the ark was a pole that had, wooden poles that had a twist in there. So if you go to the Vatican, you'll see these bronze structures. I forget what room it is, but they're massive, and they have this twist, and they call it, because in King Solomon's temple that was destroyed, they had that twist in there. So it's, in history, it's kind of lost and lost, lost and found, lost and found. But the original name is the Solomonic twist. And then, and Paul Garrett went to the Italian conference they have like every 2 years, and he came back and demoed this right here and said there they call it the barley twist. But English, you'll see the English did a lot of furniture turnings. This was just a broken candlestick right there, but you'll see a lot of wood turnings with that twist right there. So giving you just like a little bit of a history on, if you ever want to name something, if you're just want to get in a conversation and want to bore somebody, with all the fun facts. But this is real close to the Cyril-Conic twist. It is a single lead twist right here, but it's straight tapered on one side and tapered on the other one. But you can't twist it. You got to forge it. Pass that around and pass those around. So that's just one of the, and like I said, if we have time, we might do that. But it's just like a lot of other twists that other people do. You just got to be very controlled with it. And this right here, I'm always, I do arts and crafts shows and I do commission work. And it's just always easier for me to use pipe and other, lighter stuff. It's faster to heat up. So we're going to forge an acorn out of pipe. But I did a big job years ago where it was just a 10-foot wide by 8-foot high wall screen of bamboo. So some of it's solid, some of it was hollow. But I would take and put a V groove in the pipe here, and then neck it down right below it. And to get the swelling action, I would take an air hammer and do the upset. I just had it set up where you could lock it in the vise. I would heat it in one spot and turn it, and then get on my air hammer, like a jackhammer. This was like a miniature one, probably called it the wrong thing. And I had a tool set up where you could just sit there and do your quick upset. You just do a heat. You'd already had your chisel mark right there, but it would just swell up, really nice. So this is this is the acorn right here, but the let me see if the bamboo is in this bag. So you're always, this is the bamboo right here. So a bamboo's got a groove. Where there's a groove, there's like a knuckle. And there's always, the leaves are kind of ugly in shape, but the bamboo, when you're doing different stalks. So this was a thick wall right here, and I had different size pipe, because if you did it all out of solid, it would have been so heavy you couldn't, it would have took 4 guys to move it. So that, here again is like another job you can do out of pipe work. Yeah, I'd actually, I would V it, and then, you would heat it and V it, and then I would, take the air gun and upset it right there at that part. But you can also do acorns. I'll do like a, tree structure and forge acorn. Now this is going strictly with the guillotine and, V it with a guillotine and then necking it down. But you can also do an acorn under the power hammer just by having a die. And what's nice about doing pipe is if you want to do one like a worm had gone through it, you can actually, because you're hollow, you just drill a hole in it, and it looks like it's a wormy acorn nut. And you can also, if you take like the cap right here, this is the nut, and this is the cap right here. I would take these and kind of weld it onto like the stem right here, so you could, you'd texture these right here, and make it look like an acorn cap. Yeah, I would have a gas saver torch set up, and I would just sit there. I had a little roller set up. I had the vise set up, a roller here and a roller here, and I would just sit there and roll with it. And when it got ready, then I'd just come around on this end. I'd lock it in the vise, and just bzzz, and you could just, you could go through and you could do an 8-foot bar in just a little bit. But you can also make one look like a squirrel. You drill a bigger hole, and then take a die grinder, with a carbide bit, and then you would just kind of come in there, and it makes it look like a squirrel, and it chewed into it. So you're not just making, acorns left and right. You're actually just, changing the shape, but just a little more work, and you can give it a whole different kind of look. I forgot to set this in there. I should have been heating that. So this is one where it's done strictly in the guillotine setup. So I'll need my striker here again a little bit, and here again you got to have a pre-start. You can't go in there with just the raw metal with nothing done, because you're trying to go from a 3/4 down to a tip. So you got to go ahead and guillotine that in a little bit, or it'll just sit there and collapse with you. You energized again? So you're wishing that you hadn't sat there now, didn't you? So I look at it, if you can forge solid, you can forge pipe. Yeah, we're coming in right here. So I want to hold around it rather, because I like to put just a little bit of pressure. So I'm going to try to find flat right here. Then I'm going to put it in there, and then this time I'm going to let her strike it once or twice. I'm going to pull out, dump the ashes, versus me brushing it, just to show you, how I do it. And a lot of times, if I'm doing like a one-off piece, I don't even lock it in. I have holders. I got one. I'll show you kind of how I do when you're doing multiples or something. But most of the time, I'm holding these with strictly my hand, and because I'll go in there, make the impression, pull out, and then finish forging it. What? You can. There's different ways. That's one of the things I'm going to show you, different setups. So just kind of like a medium. All right, stop. Let me knocking the scale out. All right, go ahead. So you hit, you turn, you hit, you turn. So she's actually fullering. The hardest part, or the most of the work that's being done, is actually the necking part. Because if you go with solid, the extra metal has to extrude down the stem. It's not actually the forging of like the acorn, it's actually taking the extra material. You can, but I got her. I don't need to. All right, let me get another heat. So it looks kind of rough on the first go right there. So like I was saying, all the work is in the necking part. You know, that's all she's doing right now is just, I did, you know, pre-taper the front right there a little bit because if you didn't, it would collapse that pipe right there. You just get these little collapsed seams right there. So we got, you know, under the power hammer, this is one heat right here. You know, because this die I did not, you know, preheat, so I forgot that. So now this is getting warm. We're necking it down a little bit. So you can probably go a little bit harder, a little bit faster. And if you get to be a blur, I'll slow you down. But if you know, like I have multiple hammers, so I can kind of pick and choose whatever I want to go to, you know, drawing dies or flat dies. But if you're, you know, you can, I don't know if I was talking yesterday about it, but the mouse itself was done where I went from 3-inch pipe to making that mouse. I necked it all down just under radius dies under a 25 little giant. You know, I just got in there on the groove, went real easy, and then once you start to collapse that, it gets thicker. Then you just go faster, and I'm, you know, doing the tail. You know, either the nose or the tail there, but I'm pulling or pushing into it to try to keep. All right, let me get another heat. So we're getting a little bit closer here. I'm getting a little bit of heat running up this pipe right here. So like I was saying before, all the work is in necking that down, but this was solid. All the work is trying to extrude that extra metal through that little stem. Even though this is pipe, both ends are closed up, so I'm not worried about any steam coming through. So usually the guy that asked a question about the heat treating, you know, how hard the dies are, usually the dies don't ever break. It's being misaligned with the handle themselves. You get people who are flopping these things around. Unless these things are locked in good, you'll get people, they'll break right there at the weld. And so I've never really had a problem with these breaking. It's for people, you know, if you're striking, you want to be dead in the center. So if you got something in here this big and you strike over on this side right here, what's flexing up. If you strike right here, it's bending down, and it's, you know, it's people who are power hammer always kind of hit flat, which is great, but it's also bad on your hand. If you're not hit flat to your dies right here, it'll snap it out of your hand. So you'll always see me kind of, you know, flat right here.
Always post each weld.
If you're not familiar with welding, because you're going with, you know, good tool steel right here, you want to relieve your welds right here because you're building up stress. So So you'll hear a lot of people about breaking stuff. It's cause you're welding, putting a lot of heat into tool steel. Actually, it's like a quench because this has so much mass right there that you're kind of quenching your weld. I'm probably hot. So we're probably getting close right here. All right, go a little slower. Go straight on top. And I think we're probably there. I can kind of hear it right there. You can feel it? Yeah, usually under the power hammer, I'll hear the noise will change. And that last time in, I should have descaled it just a little bit. So now if you want it to look like a wormy acorn, you'd kind of come in here and drill a hole in it. Or if you want to look like a squirrel want to eat it, drill a bigger hole and then come in there with a die grinder, come around it, and you can change the whole look of it, so quick. So this,
So of those acorn sizes of dies that you make, so which ones could you hand hammer like this? And which ones, when you get like to the 1 1/4, you have to have a power hammer? Where does it get?
I'll make one acorn that's like 1 1/4 inches. And I think what she's asking, Allison, you're asking is when do I change from one to the other? You could actually, still hand hammer the big ones. You just gonna have to, if I was hand hammering the big acorn, I'd go in there, if I'm working solid, I'd go in there and fuller in the tip, go ahead and pre-taper. I'd come in here and get my measurement and fuller the stem, because like I was saying, all the work is necking it down, not creating the acorn itself, is getting that necking down, because you're compressing that metal, all that extra metal into that little stem. So that is the work part right there. So I would, I always tell people, if you don't have a treadle hammer or power hammer, go in there and help the die do a little bit of pre-work. What?
How do they work in the fly press?
With
How do those dies work in the fly press?
the fly press. Sorry. I'm hearing. I have partial hearing loss from all the years on the farm and this right here. The fly press generates a tremendous amount of pressure, but it's tremendously slow because it can only work as fast as your arm can work. But it can actually do too much, especially at the beginning. When you're working in a die like that, you kind of turn, slow hits, because you want to cut that groove. And then after you get a groove going, you hit hard. So you'd just be tap, 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 and then you would pick up speed, and then you start slamming it. But all these dies have a large radius. They're not the acorns like this. If you got sharp edges in there, you'll never be able to do one. It'll stick and hang, and you'll put pack marks on there. So the die itself is actually very radius inside of there. That way if you do overhit, it's hammering in these soft, edge blows versus, the straight edge blows. So whenever I'm making these things, even though they're made, I have to go back, I'll spring these open. Just trying to find something that would open her up. So I'll do this right here. come in here with a carbide bit, start radiusing every bit a part of this right here. These things are great, wonderful, but what they do is they shoot out little bullets, and they're a razor fine edge right there. So wherever you're doing this at, go back and run a magnet over it, and get you a full face shield, because I've had these little things stick in my eyeball. The trick to getting some of these out of your eye, because they'll just bounce inside your face mask right there. I'll have one of these nice little earth magnets that's got some saran wrap on it. Kind of stick it to your eye, and it'll suck it right out.
I would suggest you go to your ophthalmologist and have him remove it.
You can do that too. I've done that. But when you wake up late at night and you're rubbing your eye and it hurts, well, a nice magnet with saran wrap.
Yeah, but if it's in there like this and you put a magnet there and it peels out.
Yeah. But yeah. Yeah, you can get those for like $12 at Harbor Freight. And I have the nice ones too, the electric ones, but I'll just have 5 or 6 of these set up with different bits where I don't have to go around changing them. But that's one way of getting something metal out of your eye, and you got yeah, pass it around. But I'll wear full sleeves, and to keep these things out of your shoes, I'll put bags on my feet. I'll take you'll see a lot of stuff where they'll have these leather covers on your shoes right there, but I like my tennis shoes, so I'll just put some bags on my feet and duct tape them in, and that way when I'm done, I just throw the bags away.
You do that before you harden the dye.
These things will cut hardened dyes. The carbide are so good, and you can go through a lot of dyes. Now, after a while, you'll feel that you got to put more pressure, and that's when I'll change out. There's a guy, John Elliott, that used to sell a lot of carbides. He's like one of the blacksmith supply or depot. He used to have a whole bunch of them. I was always buying from him.
The good ones cost like $23, $24.
Yeah.
You buy the cheap ones from Harbor Freight.
Yeah, you'll wear them out. But he was selling the good ones for $5. So I was always buying the ones I needed. Every one he had, I'm always stocked up on those. But this is how, in tool making, how I kind of do the dressing, and so, but it's.
Way to relieve those edges is have a bigger acre, put it in there, break the edges, and go back with your original.
Yeah, what Clay is saying, that you can go, like if you're making like a 1/2-inch acorn, you can go in there with 5/8 acorn there and tap it, and it'll help you radius. It'll take some of break those edges right there, and then you don't have to do as much work right here. You just got to make sure your acorns are kind of sized for it, because for the most part, a closed die, there's open dies like the mouse, the frog, and then the closed dies, the open dies, the frog right there, the whole thing is a die. It's from top of the edge all the way around is a working end. And something like this, it's your bottom third that does all the, that's shaping it. Everything, this little top third right here is doing all the, like the acorn impression. All this does not do that much. As long as you keep your bottom of your die good, you want to, but that's why you're breaking the edges, because you're not worried about the edges so much. But it's your top third and your bottom third that does the work. See, I think we're through this. So the shrinking of a tool. So just to show some of the odd things that you can do. Let me get these out of here. You want to hold them for me for a while? Yeah.
On the twist that you passed around, you just twist them. You don't have to do any
No, which twist? Or are you talking about the barley twist? Yeah, once you, now it may, as you twist it, because basically I'm locking one end in the vise, other end, you can vice grip it, because you got to, you can't put a wrench on it, so you got to use like a vice grip. But I have a vice grip that has a handle on it, so you can get it even, but you'll still get it a little bit kind of wonky right there a little bit, so you'll have to come back and flatten it a little bit. But then you're going to come back to do your arch. I'll set it right here, the bottom end, and I'll hold it right here and take a rounding hammer to get this little belly right there going. But I do take any waviness out of it, so when I start, it's quite clean.
So you cast around the bar with a little bar welded to it. Speak to that. I know you may not have time to do it, but say how you do it so they can know.
Okay. Well, when you twist it, basically you'll almost twist it till it almost breaks or you break it. You're trying to get it, I'll keep my little water bottle handy. If I'm too hot in one spot, I'll cool it down to my getting an even twist. So I'll almost break that, I'll twist it till it screams, or breaks, and then I'll just grind off each end, and that way you're clean, and then you come and do your half on and half off on each end. But it's a nice little twist, and we actually have a tool that will kind of do that. We'll do that. That will kind of do that. Because I brought some different tools that will show like auger bits, and just kind of give you kind of off, kind of my nuttiness I think of sometime, and I brought some of those. But this is one of the things that you can do right here. This. I'm going to go ahead. This is a 4140 right here. I'm going to go ahead and throw this in, let it start getting hot. Here it is. So when I'm working on the power hammer, I have different tongs that hold it like this right here. I have this a whole bunch of them that grips it. I have these, so I can go straight from going to the edge, going to the flat, pull it out, if you're under the hammer, then go back to the edge again. And that's kind of what we're going to do here in a minute. We're going to make a round impression, square it up. We're going to go from round rosette to square rosette, and then punch in a ladybug. So here's our ladybug punch, and so this is our round rosette right here. So what we're going to do is, I already got one made right here. It's not a very deep one, but since we're hand hammering this will work. I've got coal, a little bit of scale right there. So we'll go ahead and make a round rosette just in this right there, but we're going to make that die right there, and then we're going to take it, we're going to square it up. And I kind of discovered this. I was making some anvil dies, and they was too big and wasn't kind of what I wanted, so I started going up under the hammer, and I was just starting to square up a little bit. I'd take it, hammer it on the edge, upset it, square it up, and it would actually shrink the size of the anvil itself, the die itself, and it was really giving it some nice shapes. I kept going and going and going until I was making little tiny anvils. I started with a big one, but it was too big. I wanted something a little smaller. I wouldn't have to use that much mass, and that's how I kind of figured out that you can shrink a die. Like if I wanted to make a smaller frog, you just go up on there and square it, but it'll make a deeper frog. but you can shrink the size of it.
Set it on top.
And a lot of times when I'm making my dies, I will have dies sitting all over the place, preheating. I'll have them sitting all the way in back. I have my little shelf right here, so I'm trying to, I'll have 10 pieces up here preheating at all, any one time, and I'll just kind of rotate it, closer and closer.
Alan, could you speak to the balls you've got that you're using?
These are just mild steel. There's a place in Birmingham called Lawler Foundry. They're Chinese made, but I get them all the way from 3/4 up to 2 inches, and they're just mild steel. They're not ball bearings. So whenever I need the impression, or if I want to make like a rosette with a hook on it, I'll go ahead and pre-weld onto the ball right there, clean it up, so when I drive it in, I have the rosette, and the only thing I got to do is just forge out the hook. Lawler Foundry. It's in Birmingham, Alabama. Nice people to work with. They sell, the pre-made castings or forgings. They get them from France, China, and everything else, just like King Metals and all the others. But you can get hollow balls, full balls, half, solid. All right, who is my striker? What am I looking for right here? You my striker again? I won't need that. Just a little tap right there, knock the scale off. All right. All right, one more, and that'd be good right there. So that turned out pretty good right there. All right, so that's just the round rosette right there. So that's with the round die right there. So we're going to make a round rosette die. Then we're going to make a square rosette die. And then we're going to put a ladybug impressed in that. And what that's going to do is when you get through that square rosette with a ladybug in there, it'll be raised up. Versus if you was to stamp a ladybug right there, so you got a depression where this one will be like a ladybug's actually sitting on top of it. All right, so we don't need that in there anymore. And half of my dies are done. I'll do some under the press. I have a 42-ton press, and a lot of them are done under the hammer. Depending on what kind of die that I'm doing, determines the job right there. So if it's under the press, I actually, because when it comes down, you can't cycle quick enough. So it's very fast, but I never want it to stick in there. So I'll actually will put just a few drops of oil, or not on that, but on this right here, so it won't stick. So I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna hold the die. I'm gonna hold this right there, and I'm gonna try to be in center. So when I get it, when I stop moving, you start striking. I'm gonna brush it. Normally I'll just go up under there and kiss it with a hammer. Knock that scale off, because if you have, all right, go. So if you have scale on your piece you're putting in there, you'll actually drive the scale into your die, and you'll have a very rough finish. All right. So she's bouncing with me a little bit right here. I need a mark right here. Just kind of tap me. And that's good. What I'm doing is that mark tells me where to come back out. Hope I didn't get anybody. I'm gonna get it hot again. And that little indentation there tells me that's my lineup, because it's not a perfect imprint. I can't go anywhere I want to. I have to go back to my original spot. So that little imprint tells me to come right back to that right there.
Is that positive, your H13?
This is just a mild steel ball bearing. I mean, mild steel ball. This is nothing right here.
That's nothing special.
Yeah, this is just, I just made a quick impression. Normally, this would have been something like 4140 or 5160 or H13. Something that's what I call tough, because I don't even heat treat like the S7 or H13 or 4140s. I count on the toughness of that, that positive image. Because if I heat treat it, I risk breaking it at some point. So even under the hammer, I'm smacking that hammer as hard as I can go. I don't want to leave little marks on my dies. So I'm counting on the toughness, and because I can go in and out so quick, and then I'll just snap this in the water right there, and I'm ready for my next job. But I'll just have a bucket of water. As soon as I'm done, ding, 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 do that, sit off to the side, and I'll go grab another one. So if you're doing one, you just throw it on the ground. Don't worry about it. But I'm doing like multiples. I'll never quench these things when they're red. They're just hot. There's a difference quenching the red hot steel versus hot steel. Does that make any sense? And so far I've had, great luck. Never have. But if I do bring one out red hot, I don't do nothing to it. I just set it off to the side. All right, I'm going to look for my indention. Okay, I think that's it right there. All right, stop. And being that this is, we did actually double strike right there. Whoops. Straightened it too many times. So what we're going to do, I wish now I'd have brought another one. What? Well, no, I just broke off my handle. Um, I think we can still pull out a printer there, even though we did double strike one time. And that's me not holding it in there. And this, I mean, you can tell that there's a lot more resistance in this. This is 4140. And normally at home, I had this thing where I think they said 10 pounds. I usually have it cranked up to 15 or 20. You know, when I come out, I mean, I'm hot, through and through. But I think we can still kind of pull out a square die out of that. But we're going to come out with it, and we're going to start forging. We're going to hit it, hit it, hit it, hit it. Even though we do have a double imprint, but I want to show kind of like you can go from round to square, and then we're going to do our ladybug in there. So if you have done some power hammer work, this is kind of like old news to you. But for people who've not done a lot of power hammer tools and stuff, this this is probably kind of new for you. But I wanted to show like how many layers you can go from round to square to that the ladybug. And probably if we would have jumped to the cold forge on that one, we would have probably got a little better, you heat, deeper inside that. Because I like to always make sure that I'm the same heat on the outside as I am the inside. And most of these sledgehammers have a radius. Did you know about it? There's you're always striking with a flat. Okay. Because we're going to square these up. So make sure you're on the flat.
You need to hold your left hand up at the same level as the handle. Act like you want to strike.
Make sure that when you strike down, the die will be this high, or you'll kind of skew me. You'll get me kind of in a diamond shape.
Have it at an angle.
Always when you come down and strike, make sure even though you got to go higher with your elbows, it'll keep me square, or keep the die square. All right, so start squaring up. All right, stop. All right, stop. All right, stop. Go. All right, we're going to stop. Oops, sorry. And we're going to hit that right there a couple times to get the puckers out. All right, stop. All right, so we're getting cold a little bit, so we're starting to square up. It's changing its shape now. From round to square. What I'm going for is this right here. Go ahead and pass that around. So when I'm done, if our handle broke off on that one, if we'd have gone in deeper, it would have looked just like that right there.
What looks like a very simpler flower, it's kind of an arts and crafts style rosette. You got a completely different image.
And sometimes you'll actually lose pressure on that's why he's running 2 bottles over here. I can see there's a frost line below the halfway mark. And a lot of times these bottles, if you're pulling off so much gas so fast, they'll freeze up the bottles right there. All right, stop. All right, stop. All right, stop. All right, we're gonna take my little homemade flatter that I brought, strike them. So we are getting squared up right here. We're not as deep because when we broke our handle right there. But we are going to come back and flatten, take out some of the puckers. So when we come out this time, we're going to try to take out some of the little puckers on it. And then we'll go for one more hitting on the edge right there.
I can tell I'm starting to get out of control, so.
You ready? All right, let me look at it. Okay, we're back to flat again. So we're gonna, let me get just a quick heat right here. We're gonna square up. Go ahead and give me a couple of hits right there and see if we, kind of looks like a butterfly in there.
Does kinda.
All right. So because we didn't get good depth on it when my handle broke, we're gonna go ahead and punch in the ladybug. But what I was talking about, we're not completely square. We got off scooter there a little bit, but it almost looks like a butterfly. Let's see. Let me get it going this way. So we're not up good depth, but it will still make an imprint. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna come out, and you're just gonna strike me right, not right now, and you'll just hit me
What's that?
when, just hit me one good blow when I'm ready, but not now.
All right.
I kept seeing you raising the hammer up.
Well, you're like,
Yeah, well,
Put it back
I was kind of showing you, I'm breaking you in. When I get it, I'm gonna hold it still, then you strike. You're just eager. This is S7 right here, and if you was to look at it, I rounded it, put like a little V cut in it right there, and took a small little center punch, because the ladybug has like little dots on it right there, and I dotted it. Then I filed away where the head is at. I have to use magnifying glasses to get this small, but I have different versions of like a ladybug. Ladybug is actually pretty easy to make. What? I do, but I'll come and this is air hardening steel, so I'll heat up the bottom 2/3 or the bottom half and try to leave this without getting hot, because this is your striking end. I don't want it. If you was hand hammering, if you make this hard, you're just going to leave little O's all over your hammer. Or the trail hammer is okay because you got a hardened plate on top, but you definitely don't want to mess up your hammer. You ready? All right, let's. Good. All right, while this one's heating up, this one will be cooling down a little bit. What?
Touch mark?
We can go ahead and do our touch mark. We're just going to try to do a quick cool right here. We were waiting on this to get hot.
Tell me, turn the ladybug punch on the side so we can get a good shot of it.
I don't know if I brought the large ladybug or not, but can you zoom?
He's gonna have the better shot, I guess.
But I'll pass this around. Did it get it or not? Oh, there it goes.
So it's simple, slice, slice, dot, dot, dot.
So I'll pass this around. So it may look like a ladybug on top of a butterfly. It is. And because we was in and out of the forge so much, we're a little bit scaly in there. You ready? In case we have to do this a second, I'm gonna orientate the ladybug towards me. Hit me once right there to knock the scale off. I think, all right, go for that. I think that might do it right there.
Some spots on there.
Yeah, actually the ladybug, since that was the last thing we put in there, I don't know if we can index the ladybug. Yep, we didn't do a miss. So it's my fault that the handle broke off and we didn't get a good hit. But I bet you if we would have gone into a coal forge and got that 4140 hotter, we would have had a much better chance of making it go. So the one that passed around that square rosette is what I was kind of looking for, but that gas forge just wasn't hot enough, and so we didn't get a good impression. But it's getting getting it kind of across to you that you can take something round, squaring it up even in a die, and then come back and making another impression there. So it would have been a square rosette with a ladybug on top. So it's not hot. So so one of the some other kind of things that you can do, and after I started making the corkscrew, and then I started saying, well, I'll make more impressions. So I started collecting any auger bit, anything that I kind of could find at a flea market cheap or in my scrap boxes. And so I started seeing if I could do impressions in auger bits, single lead, double lead. So like this is like a single lead auger bit right here, and then this is like a double lead wood bit. So, and I'm talking about double or single, where it has just a single lead coming across it, and this one actually has two. So you can make these impressions. So basically, you kind of waste the bit. So that's just the nature of the animal right there, because it'll kind of upset it a little bit. But I wanted to see how the impressions would go. So, and this one here is actually kind of a rarity that I did two of them. I think I did one, I didn't like it, and I just came over and made another one. Sometimes they work, a lot of times they don't, because they'll just disfigure the other one. But this one, we're going to make this one because I know this matches this right here. But this is kind of an interesting little pattern right here. This is actually this right here. It went screwy with me and it folded on it. But I went ahead and dressed it up. And when I got through, I went in there and dressed it up and to see how the impression would make. Well, this is normally this would what it would look like, but this is what it came out because it folded in on itself. Somewhere in one of those bags is like half of an impression. I'll dig it out in a little bit. So if you're doing a lot of flowers and stuff, these things are great to have, just on your shelf, and you'd have like, sometime I'll tape the example to it, or you could spot weld just enough. Sometime I'll just do a spot weld so you know what it is, because hanging on the wall there, and after you put your greasy, dirty hands on it, whatever you write on there kind of disappears after a while. So you can see the impression, but most of them they start off with writing, but it quickly loses after you make a few. But you can kind of see that the angle of this one is the angle of that one right there. That's how I kind of know it's the same thing, except this, I think, was a size bigger, but I know it was the auger bit. But I have dies made of all these different size auger bits, not the complete set, there's like 20, you can get, 20 or 30, big sets, but, I'll kind of go 3/8, half, 3/4, and 1 inch. So I'll need you in a minute, the strike. So you can take the dies right there, and I go very quickly with it. It's because I don't know what the steel is on these wood auger bits. They don't seem to hold up as well, so it's not that great of a steel. So it'll be just kind of like a light blow, and then as you see, it's kind of, I'm going to work it in and then work it out, work it in and work it out. All right, hit it. All right, start hitting harder. All right, let me get a heat. So here again, I forgot to kind of warm this up rather a little bit, but you can see the start of it. He can only strike so fast, and so as soon as I get like a little groove going, I'll start going in there faster, and the faster you move metal, the more you can kind of keep heat in something.
I can hit faster than that if you want.
So
Do you want to go a little faster?
Yeah, on this one, we will go a little bit faster because we got us a groove going, and you'll actually start seeing me go in and out a little faster.
I didn't know how much time you needed.
There, y'all, we always start, light blows to kind of get a seating in there. But if you wanted, like a long, normally I would kind of taper my bar down, and then when you kind of start making the impression, if this is going to be like a little flower stem, it would actually be kind of long, but having a taper right there, it would just kind of feather out to nothing.
Is that how you did the spiral with the curl at the end and the little penny?
Yeah, it's forged in there, and I have a die for doing. If you ever did like grapevine texturing, most people would take, because I have all kind of texturing, straight, but I can actually will do a grapevine. Most people will take it, do it straight, and then they'll twist it because grapes are spiraling. Well, I have a die that will cut a spiral, a straight spiral going around it. It's the same thing of the corkscrew, where the lines go like this and the lines go like this. So as you hit and go, you don't go up and down with it. You kind of hit, turn, and go in and out of it. So you're cutting a groove that's spiraling, but it's a heavy grape texture to it. All right. So if I were to tape this bar right there a little bit, it would have kind of feathered itself out. So if you look at the one end, this is done hand hammered, and then the other end is made with a power hammer. And because at the soon as I get a groove going, I'm opening up the hammer, hitting harder, and and I'm staying in my pocket right there. Sometime when we're striking by hand, unless he's dead on top, it's I'm kind of holding and watching, so there's a little bit of chattering mark, so you'll see it's not as clean. So you'll kind of see the difference on hand hammering versus power hammering, because you'll get a little more chattering going to it. Any questions so far?
Did you ever take a hammer with you to demo, Alan?
I have.
Yeah.
I'm taking one to Minnesota here in September up there. That's only because I'm going to Minnesota doing a demo and turn right back to Ohio doing a demo there so I'm just traveling. The old saying, "Have hammer, will travel." I'm have tire hammer, will travel. But yes, sometime I'll carry one around if I'm selling it. Somebody says, "Well, I want it," but so I'll say, "Well, if you wait till this demo, I'll bring it, halfway to you or something." But yes, I have. But this was too far and it wouldn't fit in the Highlander. We just couldn't mount it on top. I had my tape measure there trying to see if it would go. That Highlander just wouldn't hold it. But Clay did a tire hammer workshop one time and and the guy loaded up, what was it, a Subaru or what? The Subaru. They fitted in a Subaru, which I believe I would have found my best friend and borrowed his pickup or something instead of showing up. Yeah. So, did we pass this around?
Yeah.
Okay. The ladybug. So you did see that? So if you want to see what hand engraving is, that's my touch marker there. I have a little AK if it's round, like the texturing, like when I do the corkscrew, you see kind of decoration I did on the handle. Flip it over. That's sometime, if I have time, I'll sit there and do chisel work or file work. AK-47? I hadn't thought of that. I tried to get Allison to do a touch mark, having an owl eyes, the two owls will travel, but she didn't want to go for it because she does jewelry. Um, what? Yeah, she did. Um, now we'll go ahead and start preheating this. Here again, this is 4140. This is a nice little demo. I know Clay has probably done this before, but this is a center cut. You can make a side set. I cut, a lot of people cut all the time with a Hardy. Well, I cut steel up under the power hammer with the side set cutters, where this is a straight cutter right here, but we're only going to do half of this right here, which if you wanted to cut half of a bar, under the power hammer, you would just take it right here, put your bar up, and you could do that. Side set is cutting straight on one side and angled on this side. So we're only going to do one. So we're going to, here again, this is 4140, so we're going to go ahead and start getting this hot. And sometime I'll go with, I got this. This is mild steel. Now this is tool steel right here, but it is at an angle. It'll give you a straighter, it'll give you a longer angle right here. I couldn't find my die that has, the pitch would be off a little bit instead of being like a 45 on each side. It's a longer angle, and I just couldn't find it. So I forged this out real quick to give us that greater angle. So we're going to get this pretty hot so we're not hitting on cold steel. Let's put this right here. I missed my little shelf right there. But just to show how far you can kind of make your dies, this is a little set of, I did a chess set years and years ago. It wound up being more work than I ever made on it, but this is, I turned these down. I had the full pieces all, I got just a little simple little lathe, turned it down. But the problem is, like on chess sets, if you're ever doing die forging, if you go up and down with your metal, you can only extrude so much, and then if you try to go high again, well, there's not enough metal. The metal, when it screws down, there's nothing to raise it back up. So the solution to that was to make a good impression, never turn it, and you pinch your flashing off, and then come back and grind it, and then hit it again and get the flashing out, because you got to get all your extra metal out. And then when you get it down to size, then you come in there and finish it up. So you'll see the die, and then you'll see some forged pieces right here. I taped them up too well. So so when you do stuff, some things work out great, like an acorn. Balls, acorns, and some things will extrude from either end. So it's kind of like a trial and error thing. I'm trying to see what the next piece I'm doing while this is getting hot. Oh, this is the grapevine twist right here. and it's actually it looks like this, except it has a little bit of a belly to it, but the grooving is this way, like on the top side, and grooving on the bottom side here. This actually fits this way, because this is locked in. I have like a little saddle that this die will get locked in. It's just pinched in there. But this is the grapevine twist right there. So that's not me twisting it. It's actually me turning the bar as I forge it. So I'm forging in a spiral as I go. I don't twist it beforehand. It's all done in one job. But this is regular tree barking right here. This is not the grape. It'll actually be labeled grapevine twist, and it will be, and it's actually got a belly in it to allow for round stock, where this is made for like flat stock. So I make flat stock in round stock forging.
On your website, it says what, flat tree bark?
Yeah, that's what that one says. And this one will be ready in just in a minute. Oh, there it is. So, is my striker about ready? So I'll lay this up here, trying to in the center. I had to get my handle out of the way. If you ever notice, most of my handles are really light. They're not, quarter inch will kind of break, but all my handles are 5/16. That way, if your striker if he misses, it won't sting my hand so much. Or the same thing under the power hammer, if you miss, it's easier for it to bend in the handle than it is for it to snap out of your hand, or end of the day, you're just kind of numb in the hand right there. So that's why all my handles they kind of look rinky dinky. It don't matter if working on the 250 or anything, I still have like 5/16. All right, so let me seat that. So dead in the center. All right, stop. All right, dead in the center. Stop. Take out a little bit of that pucker, you're good. All right. And I need to be coming on this side. You got to remind me, because I want to taper. All right, stop. Let me get it. I can feel that it's getting cold. And I can also tell that this is sucking the heat out. So when we're getting that hot, so the only one that really worked out great was the pond on the chess set. You know, it was done that, you know, I didn't have to do the flashing or anything like that, you know. But I'll just come down on, you know, I was doing this on the 250, I just slam it and pinch out as much of the flashing, and then go grind it, and then go get it hot again, slam it again, and where it got down to just a little bit of a flashing, then I went in there and start making in the impression. So it was just, and I tried several ways to try to see if I could get around that, but that was the best way I could just kind of discover that. I still see some dark spots.
How did you do the horse?
The horse, I have a half horse and a full-size horse right there. You just make the impression. Clay helped me on the horse. But you just, all dies, you make as perfect of a positive or the master image as you can. You know, I mean, as close to perfect as you can, because when you hammer it in, it's going to take up, if you got imperfections, it's going to take that up. And you also, when you go from the master to the negative, you also lose a little bit, there's a little bit of a loss right there. Not everything translate. So there's like a 2, 3, or up to 5% loss of your image right there. So you won't as close to perfect, but make a perfect master. All right, stop. All right, stop. All right, stop. And by swapping back and forth, it keeps the impression kind of in the middle. So you're actually over. This is a good. It's a negative, but it kind of shows you that he is over striking right here. If you kind of see where the impression is stronger towards me, that means he's over striking. So you can actually tell if my hand. I can tell in my hand that he's missing every so often. He will instead of hitting dead in the center, there's a snap in my hand. And so, who wants to get that right there? So he is actually overhitting. I don't know if that's going to pick it up or not. Because it's deeper at one end than the other end. Now, we're not perfectly in line. That's okay. That was me. But you can tell right here that it's closer together here than right there. Nothing wrong with it. He'll just undercompensate. What did Clay say?
You weren't holding it in the right place.
Oh, it was me. I want to blame it on the hammer. It's probably Scott. Hey, Scott probably bought cheap hammers from China that is not completely parallel. All right, so we might can do that in another heat. So this, if you're working a lot under the power hammer, these little guys really are nice. I mean, like I said, I cut most of my steel under the power hammer with side cutters, and there's all kind of different tools that's in those. I think Clay has come here and demoed tools before. Here's a good little, if you want to know the difference between like a press and a power hammer, I'll take little drops and, I'll do these arts and crafts shows. Well, I'll make little business card holders or pen holders, but I'll take my little drops and I'll make little a person who has a business office, a lot of people say, I don't know what to buy them, but if you got something, for the office, well, I'll take all my little scraps and make little faces out of them. And oh, sorry. And so this, I didn't get a chance to do the eyeball, so this is channel. And, sometime if you're low on inventory there, I'll kind of throw this stuff out just to feel. These are done in the press. It is almost impossible to do in a treadle hammer, and that's one reason why I brought this is if you do this under the press, it looks great. If you try to do this here or like on a power hammer, it won't fold the same, because what a press does, it grabs the piece from the top and from the bottom and it chills it, but it holds it in this shape right there and it forces it to fold in a certain way. And if you try to do it out here on top of the anvil, which I was going to try to do this one as a demo, cooling it down, doing different things, could not get it to work. But you go straight to the press, because the force of it grabs it and holds it in place, and it will bulge. If you try to when you upset under the power hammer, like a little bar, it upsets differently than a press. A press will always, it'll grab it, chill it, and it'll swell, make this nice little swelling action in the center, where a power hammer will do it from the other direction right there. And what? I have. It still won't work. I was trying to do it with a treadle hammer, and it, because I knew if I could do it with a treadle hammer, I could do it here. It just won't work. Same thing for the channel. It just grabs it and holds it, makes it bend differently. Now maybe somebody can come up, something else, but I've also will take drops of tubing and I'll cool off, I'll cool it at an angle here and then flip around and do it the other way and make it go in a certain direction. I've also will take, if you got thin pipe, you can do these things cold. If you're thin enough, I've took pipe and I'll run a torch, I'll run a heat bead coming around it, and then go up under my press. It's a 40-ton press, and it'll actually collapse around where I nailed it. So you can change the heat, and it'll change the look. So I'm always just kind of experimenting and playing. All right, we're probably ready there again. So, yeah, you're going to hit more towards you. All right, stop. I'm trying to keep it in the center right here. About 2 more blows right there, then we're going to swap it. All right, stop. Let's look at it. All right, so let's straighten her up a little bit. Let's take my very fancy flatter I got right here. All right, I'm going to flip it. we're getting code, so it's not. So kind of, I would say, yeah, we could go for one more heat, or we can, where you could grind it. You actually want this. You never want your cut proud. You always want it either at the level or just below it. So, this being just like a top one right here, you'll never kind of cut through it. But if it's a double one, you want to see some daylight through it right there, because you don't want the cutting edge to hit cutting edge. It also will have just a little bit of a ragged edge, so it don't completely squirt across the room right there on you. So yeah, let's just go for. We'll finish that up in just a second. We only got just a few more heats. So this is kind of some of the tools you can kind of do up under the hammer. And I'm always I'm taking, auger bits. I'm always kind of playing with twists. I'm kind of, that the barley twist, I've gone and I've put in like two bars. This is 3/16 right here. This is 1/2 inch. And I'll weld on one piece of 3/16, another one on this side, and then twist it. And it gives it a nice little look. Now, if I wanted now to duplicate that, I'll just hit it, get spring swedges hot, put this impression there. Then you could actually duplicate right there. So there's, you can change, you can, here again, you're making a master, and then you can go ahead and make a die out of it. Here's a different kind of twist right here. This is triangular stock. And it changes up the twist. So this is kind of what's so great, that when you go to these conferences, you're seeing something that you hadn't thought of before. And here's one that looks like that I forget exactly what I think I pre-shaped that right there a little bit and then twisted around it, and it kind of traps it in there. This is a coal miner's bit right here. This is early, or it'll actually be late 1800s right there, but I wanted to kind of do this kind of twist right there. So to see what the twist is, a lot of times I'll cut these things in half, but they would have used this, that came out of a coal mine in Alabama. There was an old smith that did repair work, and he just had a whole bunch of those kind of auger bits. There was different kinds, and I saved them. So there it is. So here again, I probably fired up the coal forge, would have had that kind of. All right, stop, because this is really close to being.
Lighten up a little.
All right, let's see what we got. Yeah, so this just one or two blows towards you, and I think we'll be done. All right, we went just a tad too far. We're just a few blows. And I don't know if you're noticing, but I'm actually kind of, all right, that's good. I'm going back and forth a little bit. Since this thing grows in length, so as he's hitting, I'm going forward and back. Same thing right here. To get this, let's just hit this a couple of times right there, just to make sure we're kind of square.
So what width do you usually get it to before?
That's pretty close right there. I would, kind of kiss that, but just a good example. We've 3 or 4 heats we've gone through this. This is a 1 heat under the hammer.
Right, right.
So so if you ain't got a power hammer, find somebody who has a power hammer and make him your new best friend. Scott right here, I think, has a couple. So go visit Scott. He likes 6-packs. So what?
Not IPA.
So in these groups, you always, that's what's, sharing. I mean, Americans are so much different from like Europeans. They're very competitive over there, and for a lot of years, there was no sharing of knowledge. It was a very close guild system, where we're completely opposite. We're more social and show anything. That's always been our thing. In the Walt Skadden went and in the 80s or something like that. He said they're very, they don't really talk during demos, and it was very hard to get information out of them.
15.
It's what?
15 minutes.
Oh, I got to talk quicker. I think we can do this one in seal. This is a nice little tool. It's another way of doing some grooving. But it's just like a lower saddle right here, and you just start forging the piece in there. But what's interesting about this is that you can change this. I mean, you could make a new one of this right here, or change. You can do like a V cut. You could do a side cut piece. You could do like a little fullered piece in there. So if you wanted a different kind of look, just replace this right here. This is coil spring right here. So you could change these things up, at will right here. If you want to see what's inside, like this is a large auger bit. This is what the impression looks like if something went wrong with that when I just cut it in half. Sorry. And this is how I hold a lot of my tools on. So tire hammers, they're round. And all your dies are always different heights. There's no standard. They just come out wherever you want. The bigger the impression, the taller it is. So this just clamps on there. And it can rotate. Like Allison did a job. She got the job for a 5-foot wide by 7-foot tall tree that went into a corporate, boardroom, but they wanted to wrap around their board. Hammer texturing the tree out. So this is a straight bark. It was just textured on one side. So this tree was kind of so big there, I kept having to rotate, try to get it away from the column right there. But this, all I do is I clamp this to this right here, and it's just a fraction taller than the anvil itself. So this would just come right here. So if you got a tall die, you lower it down. If it's short, you go up. And the tree just fit right in between that. So I just cut off half of one of my tree bark dies and just cold textured that whole 7-foot, ding, 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 and I pretty much went side to side and feed it in. And, but this is one style of holder right here. And if you got something that you're doing a whole lot of vibration, then my suggestion is to hold it here, and you're also going to hold it on the opposite side too. And a lot of these, you can have saddles. You'll see some of these tools that have like a little piece of sheet metal on it right here. Well, that's to grab it. Like this, Clay does a version like this where it's only one side. Well, I have a screw here and a screw there, because some of my tools I'll do like this versus, they're so small, it's easier to do it like this. But I weld on sheet metal only on one side, so if it vibrates, the sheet metal, once you bend something thicker, it's hard to get it back in place. But the sheet metal is just easy to, it'll sit there and flex and bend. And this right here will just take up your square shank if you got, a hardy holder with it. So this, and I mean on great big jobs where I'll sometimes just weld my tool straight to the die. I don't even bother, because it'll, the bigger it is, the more vibration you got. I'll sit there and I'll just ring a weld, or just, it's a throwaway, because it's so big. And then I'll actually, you got a base plate on most of these hammers. I'll weld, especially if you're doing texturing on handrails, I'll weld steady rests, front, in front and behind it. So you got, because the bigger the bars, the more they'll bend, and the harder it is to get it out. And little things, if you're texturing, you can straighten them up fairly quick. So the whole hammer is like a tool. I'll weld and do whatever I had to, to do the job. What did we have in here? This is kind of what we're going to do here in a minute. This is just like another version of, there's all kind of versions of auger bits. But what we're doing here, if you wanted to go this extreme, you'd have to change the bottom piece to match this right here. And then you go with a deeper piece right here. So I need my striker, and I need a pair of tongs to hold 1/2 inch. And what did I do with that tool? It's where? This one where we had here cardboard box? Yeah, there it is. So strike me dead on top. I'm going to start reversing. All right, that's good. All right, straighten it just a little bit for me. So it needed, just needs a little bit of cleanup right there, but we're not going to spend, time. But I just wanted to show, how simple you can do this, and you can, do this little, basically I'm copying, that right there. You'll see some hammer marks, and that's just, he's going a little faster than I can turn. And it's just a little saddle with, whatever groover. Like I said, you can change this up to all kind of styles, and you can go light or you can go very deep with it. What's the question? Do a what?
The drill bits or the auger bits, are you
Do you treat the
de-stressing
bits
them?
before you start working with them?
No, but I do go very fast. You talking about when I make the impression, taking like an auger bit?
Yeah, when you're making the
Yeah,
auger bit.
I don't. Usually I try to go in there hot and heavy. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of medium grade steel. They'll kind of collapse. Sometimes if you linger in there too much, it just won't hold its shape. But I go in there fast and heavy, and get in and get out because they'll just fold with you. So sometimes I'll just, half a dozen hits, go cool it. Half a dozen hits, go cool it, because I just know from experience that they just fall apart. As far as heat treating, you could go in there and do it, but since it doesn't look like it's a great steel from the get-go, you're heat treating just a medium grade, maybe like a 1045 or something like that. It's just not a high carbon steel. So whatever you did to it, is just going to disappear as soon as you get it hot. I mean, it's always worth a try, but I get like 95% success out of it. Just every so often I'll get, and it's usually the high ones, the big auger, thin lead screws. Those are the ones that I don't seem to get so good. So it's like 3 blows, cool, 3 blows, cool. And I do it that way, and I do a lot better. And it was only at the very beginning that it would just completely fold over on me. Another little shortcut. I know we're running short on time. Years ago, I got a job. Somebody wanted wanted some grave crosses right there, and they'd seen the little split cross deal, and they wanted something like that. But I wasn't going to, do a cross where I had to go for that much sawing. So I started with a small one where I got my spacing, and I would arc weld. Uh, Instead of you sawing down so much and stopping, I would arc weld. So this has an arc weld here, none here, arc weld here, none there. So I got my, what I, considered was the right amount, because I kept increasing, and then you just open and fold, and eventually I got up to where I could do what I considered heavy enough to go into a cemetery, which was 4 1-inch bars. But I would just arc weld, and then I'd kind of pre-hammer texture the steel, and then I would take it out. On some of them, I would put, you could do like a nice scroll in there, or I would take under the press, I'd come in there and upset like a bar and get that bulge in the middle, then drill a hole through it, and these ends I would actually, either upset or do like a little fish, a little screw with it right there. But you would do this in one heat. And all you had to do was figure up your math, because you can never get it back in the gas forge again, because you wanted all your twists and turns right here equal. And it took 2 people, but I just, put it in my big gas forge there and got a big monster heat. And I had a tubing that would grab 2 1-inch bars, 2 1-inch bars, and a guy would get on one end, I'd get on the other, and we'd open it up, then we'd come over here and open it up, and then I would just sit on my press, because it would actually have a little kind of belly to it, and just mash it flat. Now this right here is small enough that you could do under a treadle hammer, but the 1-inch bars, because you're opening up a little bigger, and so it's like, how to think simple to do big jobs, and constantly in my head, how to do, for whatever reason, one day I wanted to do a slit drift of 3-inch solid, but I wanted to do it solo as a demo. So I did all the tooling to do a slit and drift solid by myself, and I did all the tooling, but I did small slitters, and then the drifts was like a 1/2-inch drift, 1-inch drift, 2-inch drift, 2.5, and I stepped it up, but I could do that all by myself. The problem is it takes too long to heat up 3-inch solid. But by thinking in smaller, it's like, Clifton Ralph always said, feed the baby. I'm always thinking small to do big jobs. If you can think that way, all your work will be easier. Come and, think as small as you can do it to do bigger jobs. And
So the beginning of that is L's, right?
well, this is just 4 bars, all in a straight, line right there. But the tack welds, on the opposite side. So as you open up, what?
Well, as you open it up, it twists.
Yeah. Well, anybody who's done, saw cut this out right here will kind of know what you're doing. You're sawing so far,
They
in,
do that out here. They do
What?
it in the south side.
Yeah.
They probably do the same thing.
I'm sure y'all have done the Frederick Kress cut. Well, this is just another version of doing it, but in a bigger shape. I'm doing it for a graveyard, not for hanging around your neck or hanging on the wall. I'm doing like a 40-pounder, cross versus the little 5-pound tabletop version, and doing it in one heat. Because once it's open, you can't get it back in the forge again. Because it's so big, even a coal forge, you'd have a hard time to get enough heat going all the way around it. So you got to have all your ducks in a row. All right, 12 o'clock. Somebody said it was.
Yeah, 3 2.
Okay. All right, well, that's all the knowledge I have for you. If anybody wants